Imagine this. You're chilling in your yurt, enjoying a perfectly grilled skewer of mutton, when suddenly some guy on a fancy horse rides up, yelling, "Pack your bags." The Kushans are coming. You barely have time to grab your best goat before you're off on an unexpected adventure across the rugged landscapes of Central Asia. For the people of Central Asia, in the first few centuries CE, this wasn't just a bad dream, it was reality. When the Kushan Empire expanded, whole communities found themselves running for the hills. Literally. But who were the Kushans? Why were they expanding? And most importantly, where did all these displaced people go? Buckle up, because this is the wild story of refugee movements caused by one of history's most underrated empires. The Kushans were like that one ambitious friend who starts a small business and suddenly wants to own half the city. Originally part of the Refugee people, they started as nomadic horse riders who were chilling somewhere around modern-day China. But then, thanks to a mix of climate changes, internal conflicts, and a desire for new lands, they began moving westward. By the 1st century CE, they had carved out a powerful empire stretching across modern Afghanistan, Pakistan, and parts of India and Central Asia. And like any empire on a conquest spree, they weren't exactly knocking on doors, politely asking people to relocate. The expansion of the Kushans meant one thing for the existing residents: time to skedaddle. If Google Maps had existed back then, it would have been chaos. With Kushan armies rolling in, many groups, including Saka tribes, Parthians, and smaller sedentary communities, had 3 options. 1. Fight, which often ended badly because the Kushans weren't known for handing out participation trophies. 2. Submit, which meant giving up their lands, sometimes their identity, and dealing with Kushan taxation. Blair. 3. Run, which many people did, sparking one of the lesser-known refugee crises of the ancient world. The displaced groups scattered in different directions. Some fled into the Pamir Mountains, where the terrain was as welcoming as a mother-in-law's glare. Others migrated south toward the Indian subcontinent, blending into local communities and shaping regional cultures. Still, others were pushed westward into Parthian and Roman territories, stirring up trouble there. One of the biggest movements involved the Saka people, an ancient Scythian group who had been ruling parts of Bactria and northwest India before the Kushans arrived and rudely took over. These guys didn't just disappear. They moved further into India, where they influenced trade, warfare, and even fashion. Hello, cool Saka-style boots. Let's take a moment to appreciate the logistical nightmare of an ancient refugee crisis. Imagine thousands of families, warriors, traders, and farmers are trying to move across deserts, mountains, and rivers while dodging hostile forces. If you think moving apartments is stressful, try relocating your entire civilization. These massive movements didn't just affect the people fleeing. They also reshaped the lands they entered. New languages, trade routes, and conflicts emerged as different cultures collided. Some refugees integrated, others fought for dominance, and a few probably just sat down and cried into their yak milk tea. One of the biggest cultural consequences was the spread of Central Asian influences into South Asia. Thanks to these refugee movements, we see the rise of new hybrid art forms. Religious exchanges, Buddhism thrived under Kushan rule, and trade routes that helped connect the Silk Road in new ways. But let's be real, none of this was easy for the actual people living through it. Imagine explaining to your kids why you have to leave behind your favorite pasture because some guy with a golden crown decided he wanted it. history has a funny way of repeating itself. Even today, conflicts, empires, and political shifts force people to move in search of safety and opportunity. The story of the Kushan expansion reminds us that migration isn't new, it's been happening for thousands of years, shaping civilizations as we know them. So next time you hear about refugee movements, think about those ancient Saka warriors or the Parthian traders who had to pack up and start fresh. And maybe, just maybe, be grateful that your biggest moving hassle is finding enough cardboard boxes. Here's the twist. For all their power, the Kushans eventually faded from the stage of history. Internal conflicts, pressure from new invaders, looking at you, Sassanids, and the decline of their trade networks caused their empire to crumble. But the people they displaced, they lived on. The cultures, ideas, and trade routes they helped create continued to evolve, shaping the history of India, Persia, and even China. The legacy of the displaced was, in many ways, just as powerful as the empire that forced them to move. So, what's the moral of the story? Empires rise, empires fall, but people, no matter how much they get pushed around, find a way to survive, adapt, and make history. And that, my friends, is how the Kushan Empire unintentionally became one of history's greatest travel agencies.